And that's very funny that's how I'm starting a Haps broadcast because I'm crooked. No, I'm not crooked. Wow. I hope that's straight now. So I don't look like I'm all slanty and stuff. We are here. We've got a lot to discuss. I'm wearing glasses today. I usually don't when I do video, but I got to read a bunch of things. This is the first time I'm doing it, so I don't want to miss anything. I hope everybody's doing well. I promise you will entertain, and I promise you will inform. That's the way I do broadcasts, and that's the way I do anything. We are on a lot of different channels, but the best way to follow us is haps.tv. You can follow me there. I think this went out on Twitter. That's awesome. I'm not checking Twitter because if I do, then I'll get dizzy. There's so many things as far as that's concerned. I will promise you, we're going to cover a bunch of things in the next hour or so. I have a special guest coming, and what's his name? This is a gentleman that I don't know, but I'm just meeting, and this guy is. Hold on. I will tell you exactly when. He's a Democratic strategist and media expert. His name is Spencer Critchley. He sounds very formal. And Spencer is going to be the guy. He is a political strategist. He's going to tell us about that mishmash thing last night with Joe Biden on one channel and Trump on the other channel. And everybody's getting dizzy about all of it. And I don't care if more people watch Trump. I think more people like to watch train wrecks. And that was certainly a train wreck. Mark says hello. Great to see you back on Haps. Yes, Mark, nice to be back. I'm very excited to be back. And you're in Los Angeles, so it's 9 a.m. So hopefully you're up and comfortable. Pablo's there as well. And who else? We'll see who else comes to say hello. A little bit about me. Primarily, I'm a sportscaster with a little bit of pop culture in there. I have been in broadcasting for 26 years. 26 years. It just means I'm getting old, man. And I have covered baseball for 26 years. This year's a little different. I started covering, I've covered all sports, but I started covering the New York Jets this year. For Sports Illustrated, and I have yet to see a victory, and I don't think I'm going to see a victory, and I'll probably not even have the job by the next time they win because they're that bad. And I've been watching all of the sports. I've been following sports within this pandemic, and I have a lot of opinions about that. For example, I'm very pro getting the NFL done. I just want the NFL to do it a little differently. What I want from the NFL is just to acknowledge that there's a problem. You know, the Indianapolis Colts this morning had their facility closed, and it's not a crisis. It's a crisis for whoever got sick, and I hope that everybody who got sick and tested positive, I hope they're asymptomatic and they're healthy and they don't have heart problems. And, you know, I wish that for anybody. But what the NFL should do, and I just think that they have an opportunity to be forward thinking, although, you know, it's 6 weeks in, so I don't know how forward thinking this is. But I thought at the beginning of the season, what they should have done was built 2 extra weeks into the schedule. So build a week 18 and a week 19. And what you do is you have those be your buffer weeks. Have them be the week so that when you have cancellations, you get those games in and in normal time and in normal prep and not this hodgepodge Tuesday nights and random things, and the Denver Broncos getting screwed because their game got canceled after they had a full week of prep and all of those things. You don't have to make it hodgepodge. Baseball does hodgepodge. That's what hodgepodge was. The definition of hodgepodge were the St. Louis Cardinals and the Miami Marlins. That was hodgepodge. The NFL's trying to do better than that. And let them try to do better than that. That's the argument. Pablo says, I'm really worried the season will wrap up. I don't think it's going to because there's too much money at stake. And the virus, while it's not under control, the NFL thinks they can control it. And I'm accepting of that. I am of the belief that when we argue for the National Football League, they were defiant in the beginning. if you remember what the NFL was in the very, very beginning of this whole thing, they had their schedule come out. Their draft was going to be virtual. They were going to be fine. And all I wanted was the same thing that Gary Bettman and Adam Silver and even that criminal Rob Manfred said, which was, we'll do our best. We're going to try. And that's all I wanted. Just be honest. And the argument for the National Football League, what I didn't want them to do was I didn't want them to announce their schedule until they could assure us that they would get it off without a hitch. But it's important to put schedules on magnets. I mean, that's the argument? Not really. So then on top of that, it got to a point where during training camp, they were having exceptional COVID numbers. A little known, little publicized fact about that. They were putting teams up in these hotels and they weren't playing anyone. So there was no travel and everyone was isolated. Of course you're going to have great numbers. But then once the season started, everyone went to their homes. And then it just became what baseball is, and I'm not even suggesting that the football teams are to blame for this. You can get COVID accidentally. You can go to a grocery store and get COVID. You can go to a bank and get COVID. If you don't wash your hands after you touch the ATM, you could get COVID. I'm not saying you're going to. And I'm not going to profess to be some kind of expert. Nor am I an alarmist. But I take this stuff seriously. And I think everyone should. I think that in the argument that comes from the NFL is just what they should do is just show some vulnerability. And I don't think anything would be bad. That's all it is. All right, I got to make this chat go closer to me because I feel weird looking like this. But I'm really worried the season will wrap up. We read that one already. What's the worst case scenario here? Well, the worst case scenario is 10 teams have a breakdown, an outbreak, and they have to suspend the season. That's not going to happen. I think their protocols are pretty darn good. I've been to the Jets facility, and I'm planning on going to an NFL game in the next couple of weeks, and it's okay. I mean, the sport of football scares me just because of the contact, but I don't. So far, it hasn't been spread from team to team. Like when the Titans had their outbreak, it went wildfire in the Titans locker room, but it didn't go anywhere else. So I don't think that can happen. This is my new favorite thing. My new favorite thing for the iPhone. Look at that. Can you see that? Potential spam. I love that. No, I'm not answering it. That's perfect. That's literally perfect. That I like. Okay. The situation with baseball, they complained about money right away. The NFL never did that. The NFL said we have to get these games played because they have a television contract and they were going to get paid even if they didn't play the games. So they are just in that position. And I remember talking to Tony Romo and Jim Nance on my podcast about the games, and they were taking it very honestly and very seriously, but that was it. But that was it. And if, we have this argument that the NFL was going to have an outbreak and we knew it, I don't think that means we're gloom and doom. I just think they should be prepared, and they should tell us right now, the Super Bowl is being pushed by 2 weeks. Plan ahead. Plan ahead. And you could do that easily. And I don't think there's a fan. I don't care if you are a right-wing nut job, a left-wing nut job. I don't think anyone would care if the NFL said the Super Bowl is happening, but it's 2 weeks later because we're going to put it in 2 extra weeks in case for cancellations. And I think that people would be like, okay, that works. That totally works. Renegade Falco, I don't know you, but nice to meet you. We knew small outbreaks would happen. They're doing fine, all things considered. I agree. They're doing fine, all things considered. Is it a flawless system? No. Is it a breakdown? No. The best line was Michael Che on Saturday Night Live 2 weeks ago when the Titans had their outbreak, and he looked right at the camera and he said, cancel the season. It should never have started. You should not have this, and there should be no record of it. Signed the New York Jets. Now, and that made me laugh. Spam calls, I'm getting a ton, and I'm getting a ton of people asking me to vote. and I voted 2 weeks ago, and I'm done with it. I'm over it. We have to resist the cancel anything and everything hysteria each time a single person gets this damn virus. Correct. I am not a cancel everything. What I want to do is just do it responsibly. And my proposal was just give them a buffer week so that if the Colts can't play this week, and I could look up who they're playing, but I don't want to touch anything with this computer and break anything. And if the Colts game is canceled, then play it in January or December at the end of the season, whenever the season ends. That's how I would do it. It's very different from the other sports, and I think then you could put teams in hotels again. I just don't think you can have a situation for a regular season and do it in a bubble, because you can't take guys out of society. Like, you have to be able to live. You have to be able to see your families. The NBA players and the NHL players that did it, all their comments was it was long and they missed everything and they felt bad. And, it was great to do, but it was tough. The Colts play the Bengals. Oh, Peter's going to be my official producer here. All right. Tell me who the Green Bay Packers play. Let's see how fast he is. Adam says hello from Los Angeles. Hello, Adam. How is Los Angeles? I heard it's hot. I heard as hot as anything over there. That's what I heard. They play the Packers play the Bucks. Oh, that's right. Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady. Yeah, see, that wasn't even a good joke. I didn't even have a good joke there. No, that's too bad. As far as the baseball is concerned, because I don't want to do college football, because then I'm going to piss everybody off. The baseball is concerned. First of all, the Atlanta Braves are a really good team, and I thought the Dodgers 1-1 in the sixth. That's all you could ask for. Down 2-1, 1-1 in the sixth inning. You have to win that game, and I don't think the Dodgers have anybody to blame. I know people are going to point to Kershaw. He had already given you 5 innings. Should they have pulled him? No, probably not. How about this? I didn't say it then. I would have said no more than 6. And it was funny. The references on Twitter last night were all about Grady Little, and I was at that game. And Grady Little, a lot of people believe I should have kept Pedro Martinez in. And this is like the anniversary of the Aaron Boone game, and they left Pedro in too long. And, my funny thing about Clayton Kershaw, I mean, he's going to be defined by his postseason failure. There's no other way to describe it. But the Braves are up 3-1, and it's very funny. When I'm 3-1, I want it over. When I was 2-2, I'd want it to go the distance. I'd root for a 7th game. Now, I don't want to see the Dodgers come back, because they're not going to come back from 3-1 down. And I think the Braves are going to go to the World Series. And the Braves are going to play probably Tampa. Now, Houston won again, and it was very funny last night. I was watching the town halls, the train wreck town halls, and I flipped because both of them were in a commercial at the same time. And I know that I'm a cord cutter, and I don't do traditional TV too much, and but that's what I was brought up on, and that's what I studied when I was in school. Counter programming. If you're NBC and you know that ABC's in a commercial, don't go to commercial, and vice versa. So anyway, I flipped it over to, I guess TBS does TBS or TNT, one of those. I don't know. It's Hulu Live. That's how about it? That's how I know it. I don't know what networks these things on. I know Brian Anderson called it, and he's great, and he's the man. He's the Brewers announcer. He's my buddy, and he did a great job calling it. Because Correa hit that home run to snap a tie in the 9th, and the Astros live on to fight another day. And there's 2 things about the Astros that I can tell you. Number one, yes, I know they're a bunch of cheaters. Bill says pro sports is losing money and fans if they don't play. Agreed. But they have to do it safely, and they have to figure out how to, if there's an outbreak, you have to put the game aside and not put the game ahead of safety. Bill, I hope you agree with that. I'll do like Biden. Did I answer your question? No, let me know, Bill. The argument from my standpoint is the Astros. Yes, I know they're a bunch of cheaters, and I know that we all hate them and that we didn't want them. Number one, they shouldn't have been there, because that hodgepodge season had that stupid first round with the best of three. And I told you, a best of three, any team can win 2 out of 3 against any team. I don't care if you're the best team in the league or the worst team in the league. That's not how it works. And ultimately, the Astros were under 500. They don't have Garrett Cole. He's not there this year. Justin Verlander's hurt. They don't have much. And they were kind of on borrowed time, if you ask me. And they know it. And I talked to Dusty Baker this weekend because in Dusty We Trusty. Dusty's an old friend. Dusty Baker, I'll tell this real quick. Dusty Baker gave the eulogy at my best friend's funeral. And Dusty Baker can do no wrong. He is he helped me through the darkest time of my life. My best friend was killed. He was the late, great Darryl Hamilton, played in the majors, was my broadcast partner, and he died in 2015. And Dusty was his manager with the San Francisco Giants in the early 2000s. And Dusty was just brilliant. And Dusty helped me through the whole morning time. He was he's a brilliant guy. And I root for Dusty Baker hard. And I'm not going to lie. I'm rooting for the cheating Astros just because I want to see Dusty have the reward of a pennant. I think that would be amazing for Dusty. So if the Astros are going to come back from a 3-0 deficit, I'm all for it. I love Dusty Baker with all my heart. And I don't care about the stinking Astros. It doesn't bother me. Yeah, they cheated. And you know what? A bunch of the Astro players, before I knew they were cheating, came on my podcast, my Sports with Friends podcast, which we can tell you comes out every Wednesday. I do these 2 podcasts, and I'll show you about them. But I have this guest list. And where are the Astros? Here, Astros. There you go. George Springer. That's right. George Springer was on Sports with Friends, episode 157. So we've done 260 some odd episodes, and George Springer has he was on way before I knew that anything cheating was going on in any way, shape, or form. So that's kind of crazy. Pablo says, as a Dodger fan, that's the one time we can blame something other than our players for a World Series loss. Yeah, no, I get it. The Astros cheated, but Dusty wasn't there. You know, the AJ Hinch and the mastermind behind the whole thing was Alex Cora, and they're not there. So you can't blame Dusty for that. And Dusty came in to bring some class and dignity to their situation, and he did. So speaking of the podcast, so let's talk about that for a second. How do I get this on the screen? Oh, just like that. Look at that. So that is, it's condensed, but that is this week's episode of Sports with Friends. See that guy on the bottom right? His name is Din Man. He's actually my old boss. He was a 17-year executive at Major League Baseball. The guy on the top left is the Hall of Famer, the legend, Whitey Ford, and we pay tribute to him. He passed away last week. Hit the one icon. Let's do that. Nope. That didn't work. How do we get it to go back? Wait, hold on. There you go. Okay. At least you can see most of it. So Whitey Ford passed away. And my quick story on Whitey Ford is he was really good friends with my wife's grandfather. Really random, weird connection. And they were Beluga Blues, this cool photo. Thank you very much. So Whitey Ford, I met Whitey Ford when he was like 80. And he had Alzheimer's for the last couple of years. So we haven't had much to do. And my wife's grandfather passed away over 10 years ago. So, but I got a chance to meet Whitey Ford through that connection, not through my Major League Baseball connection. And I'll tell you one quick Whitey Ford story. Whitey Ford was a witness to me getting played a trick with the late, great Yogi Berra. And this has to do with Jackie Robinson Day. Jackie Robinson Day is April 15th, and it's the day that Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier in Major League Baseball. And Whitey Ford was a witness. He saw the whole thing, and we were at Yankee Stadium sometime in April, and Whitey Ford was there, and Yogi Berra was there, and some guy at baseball, this guy Steve, he talked to Whitey Ford about it, and Whitey put him up to it, from what I understand. And Steve tells me, go ask Yogi about Jackie Robinson. So I go up and I say, Mr. Berra, Mr. Berra, can I talk to you for a moment about Jackie Robinson? And so we get on camera, we roll, and I said, Yogi, when I say Jackie Robinson, what comes to mind? And Yogi Berra, you would have thought I said something criminal. And he literally says, that mother blank was out. That guy was out. I don't care what anybody says. Don't ask me. Jackie Robinson was out. I put the tag on before he hit home plate. And he's screaming at the top of his lungs. And I didn't know that was coming. And they set me up. And I obviously we didn't use that in the Jackie Robinson tribute. What I was looking for was the significance of Jackie Robinson breaking the color barrier, and it's a pretty serious subject, and he's screaming to me about how he's out. The guy on the top right is Joe Morgan, Hall of Famer. I know there's a lot of younger people who might be watching this. I don't even know how many people are watching this. I'm sure they'll tell me, though. I mean, if it's 3 people, they'll definitely tell me. The Joe Morgan had this Hall of Fame career, one of the greatest second basemen of all time, was a key cog in the Cincinnati Reds World Championship teams in the 70s. You know, for 9 years, he played for the Houston franchise, first the Colt 45s, then the Astros. Joe Morgan, and then spent 20 years as the voice of Sunday Night Baseball along with John Miller. And Joe Morgan was brilliant, and that's a great broadcast. And they don't have broadcasts like that anymore. That's pretty great. That's pretty impressive. 340 people. Wow, that's pretty good. I should say that out loud, right? 340 people. Hi, 340 people. That's pretty good. Tell a friend. Tell a friend. Tell your uncle. I don't know. So anyway, Joe Morgan passed away this week, and then the third one was a dear friend of ours. His face is kind of cut off in that picture, but Jimmy Lee Solomon, who, in all honesty, he was a Major League Baseball executive, and I thought he was going to be commissioner. How did you make it smaller? That's pretty good. Jimmy Lee, I thought was going to be commissioner. I met him in 2002, and I met Rob Manfred the same year, and I would have sworn Robbie Manfred was never going to be commissioner. But so it shows how much I know. They went with Manfred, and Jimmy Lee was let go. And that's all well and good. Hold on. You need this? Hold on. You know, working from home is always a pleasure. Here you go. Goodbye. And Jimmy Lee is the creator of the Futures game. He created the Civil Rights game. He created the RBI program, which is reviving baseball in inner cities. He is just, he was a hell of a guy. He knew everybody. He was friends with Stevie Wonder. I don't know. He knew everybody. And I always thought he would be commissioner. And he was dear friends with my best friend, Daryl, which we now brought up Daryl twice. That's weird. But Jimmy Lee Solomon knew Daryl very well. And actually, that was my connection to him. And Jimmy Lee Solomon died of a heart attack at age 64, and very sudden and really awful. And I feel so bad for him and his family. And I guess there's a funeral tomorrow, and it's going to be on some live stream or something. And that's what that's the way we do things now in 2020. So anyway, so Din Man joined us to talk about all 3, and he had great stories about all 3, plus stories of his own. His grandfather was one of the original owners of the Astros and helped build the Astrodome, and that was a fascinating thing. So Sports with Friends is coming up on this week. That's this week's episode. Okay, that's the first thing. Okay. All right. The next thing I want to tell you about is the fact that we have a new sponsor on Sports with Friends. And just because I told Peter and Pablo that I would do this, I'm going to do this. Sports with Friends is proud to be sponsored by Manscaped. Manscaped, that's right. Men, you have to do this. You have to, you got to trim. You got to be clean down there. And this is a great company, Manscaped. And what they have in a partnership with Sports with Friends, you go to manscaped.com and use the keyword friends. Friends. And you can get 20% off and free shipping on this. It's a great gift. It's a good gag gift if you're so inclined. Ladies, if you want to get this for your man. Men, if you want to get this for your men or you want to get this for yourself. Hey, listen, we have no prejudices whatsoever. Manscaped.com is the sponsor. As for the podcast, you can download Sports with Friends at Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Stitcher or anywhere you get podcasts. You can find them there. I also do a superhero podcast. Potato. Okay. The Hall of Justice is a superhero podcast that we do, and that comes out on Thursdays. And this week we review The Boys season 2. Has anybody seen The Boys season 2? It's a really great show. And we talk about that coming up. It's so good. It is literally so good. It just a lot of fun. I mean, there's no other way to describe it. A lot of fun. The show's great. Character development like crazy. Aya Cash, who was on that show You're the Worst, she plays Stormfront, who turns out to, I mean, that I don't want to spoil it on here because we're live, but on the podcast we spoil the bejesus of it, and that's this week's podcast, and you can get that the same place. Apple's podcast is where like 91% of our audience comes from. Spotify comes from as well. And yeah, you can do that. Yes, it's an interesting way to comment on societal issues today. It really is. It's very poignant, and they filmed it years ago, so they didn't know about 2020, and it's amazing, and it's very, very well done. So that is Hall of Justice this week. I love The Boys. I thought The Boys was such a great show, and let's try this. We're going to try to invite somebody. We just invited him, and we'll see if he comes on. And if he does, then his face will turn on, Spencer Critchley. And no, I'm not going to spoil it. No. Let's just say that Aya Cash plays an absolutely incredible character. It's just an incredible character. Not a good person by any stretch, but it's wild. And it's very, very intriguing and a great show. And I don't know. How do I know if I invited him right? It says uninvite. I don't want to uninvite. And I'm letting him in, and he can do it. Should I send him a note? I don't know Spencer. I'm meeting Spencer for the first time. So you're meeting him for the first time as well. Somebody, look at this. Look at this. Is this him? Spencer Critchley. Ladies and gentlemen, Spencer is here. Welcome. How are you?
It's good to meet you, Seth.
This is literally, I am meeting you on, wait, hold on. Let me get this screen right. I told the person who introduced us.
I'm doing well, thanks. Let me just see if I've got my, just have to check my, I've got you coming in through 2 audio feeds here.
Oh, so you sound like an echo. So I sound like we're at a baseball field. And
there we go.
Your attention, please, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, it's, all right, we're good. It's like 100,000 seat stadium echo, except it's not. All right, I think it's working.
All right, I think it's working too. Spencer is a political analyst, and it was so funny. I got this email, and I wanted to do something on the town halls last night, the quasi debate with the 2 channels and the whole thing. And I was thinking about how I wanted to do it, and I got the email, and I said, if he can figure out Haps, we're great. So I'm thrilled that you could pull this off. Let's start it off. How did you watch it? Did you watch both simultaneously? Did you flip between both? Did you record one, watch the other? And yeah. Tell us how you consumed it.
That was the option. I recorded Trump and watched Biden. Partly, I think, because I was a little annoyed that NBC made the decision that it did. And I knew that Trump would be ratings bait because he always is. And I think instinctively didn't want to play along. So I watched Biden live and recorded Trump and checked out Trump later.
Yeah, we were tried to flip. I put Biden on the iPad and I put Trump on the TV. On the, because it's Apple TV, so it's all streaming anyway. And we tried to flip between both from time to time. Such a different tone.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
I mean, they were like two totally different shows. In hindsight, does this format help either candidate by not having the second debate?
I think that it helped Joe Biden a great deal and did more tremendous damage to Donald Trump. I mean, the first debate, we can see what happened to his poll numbers. They just went into a free fall after that debate. And, focus groups, individual interviews, people saying that it was the debate that caused that to happen. I think some folks were worried that by giving him this town hall without an opponent last night, he'd have the chance to do something good for himself and use it as an hour or so of political advertising. But it was, somebody said maybe the Biden campaign should report that as an in-kind contribution to them, because I just think he did himself more serious damage. And I think also Savannah Guthrie was quite an aggressive interviewer, which didn't help him at all, because she kept pinning him down on the facts, and he does not do well when somebody does that to him.
Right, he did it more than Biden would have, and there's
I think she was more aggressive than Biden would have been. I think you're right.
The interesting part about it that I don't understand is, tell me if some of my facts are incorrect, but that Chuck Todd suggested that NBC offer it to the Trump campaign, and Trump took it. And what I didn't understand is why he does that and doesn't go on with one of his cronies, Tucker Carlson or Laura Ingraham or Hannity or one of those dudes, and why he didn't go into a place where he had his comfort zone. I understand he's trying to convey a message to undecideds, and so setting him up, but doesn't he have to go to a place that's friendlier for him?
Well, I think the problem that his campaign is facing is that the whole idea of skipping this second debate from the political campaign side was crazy, because those two candidate presidential debates typically draw 60 million or more viewers, which is just an enormous number in broadcasting. I mean, Fox is the most popular cable news show, and a popular Fox show draws like 1 million or 2 people at a time, which is very impressive.
Wild. Yeah.
But you're talking about a 60th or less of the audience that you get on a presidential debate, normal presidential debate. I think the Hillary Clinton Trump debate in 2016, one of those drew 84 million viewers or something.
That's crazy.
And so his campaign, I'm sure Trump's campaign professionals are just going insane watching him throw away a 60 million plus audience, and then deciding to go on NBC, presumably because somebody convinced him, look at the size of this audience, and ratings is one thing he understands. I also suspect, I'm only speculating, but his behavior supports this kind of speculation, that he couldn't bear the idea that Biden would be getting undivided attention. And so when he got the chance to try to step on Biden's broadcast, he couldn't resist. But as I say, I just think he did more very serious damage to himself.
And I just want to have a caveat, and I probably should have said this in the very beginning. Two things. Number one, for all the folks in the chat room, if there's a question that you have for Spencer or myself, ask it. The comments that I see, and I'm not blocking anybody, but I'm not going to just start reading off everybody's comments, because everybody can see those. So those don't have.
I can imagine if you've got any Trump fans, they're
vocal. I get it.
They may not be super happy with me, but I would actually encourage them to check me out, because while I very strongly oppose President Trump, I would maintain I'm one of the more open-minded people who opposes him, and I've written a whole book trying to explain the appeal of Trump to people who don't understand it. So my book is called Patriots of Two Nations, if you'd like to check it out. As I say, I do not come up with a case for Trump, but I do, I think, help people understand why good people would vote for Trump.
No, and I have a little bit of a different spin. I am pretty down the middle, and I respect Republicans. I have no problems with Republicans. I actually have a pretty cool story that I could tell later. I met President Bush when he was president of the United States. He was cool as crap. I mean,
Sure.
he was so charming and funny, and we had this great moment. And he did something really nice for the guys. I was working at MLB at the time, and he sent us these photos, and I have a signed photo with him that I didn't ask for, and he did it. And this was in his second term. This was at the Nationals inaugural game at the Washington Nationals Park, and I couldn't have been more pleased. And yeah, there are things that I've been critical of for George Bush, but I don't hate the man. I don't despise the man. And what I have no problems with is I have problems with the right wing or the left wing, the fanaticals, the crazies, the people who are taking logic out of this. That's where I have issues. And when I go on, and I've lost like 600 Twitter followers during the pandemic because I wear a mask. Yeah. And then I wrote, and this is the last point, and then I want to give you the floor. I went on Twitter the other day, and I said that I think that MetLife Stadium in the Meadowlands in New Jersey can safely have 7,500 to 10,000 fans in this giant stadium, and I think it would make a huge difference. And then I got called a right-wing nut job. And I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Like, you can't win. So I should have said that before I had you on, and I wanted to get that out because people are watching, and I don't want them to think that we're doing this for any kind of a spin. But Trump is in this situation now where, how much do you believe the polls? And all the polls say that Biden has an 11-point lead, but I kind of remember polls in 2016 saying that Hillary had a big lead, and Election day was totally different than what we thought it was going to be. What's your assessment of polls that you see, and what polls should people be watching closer than others?
Sure, and I think I can help people understand those polls better. I have experience on a lot of political campaigns, including both of the Obama campaigns.
Yeah, we mentioned that at the top there,
and helping out with the Hillary campaign. Just before I get to that, though, I totally agree with you about the hatred of your opponents, and I think that is the top problem we face. And I've got lots of good Republican friends, and one of the points I make in the book is that one of the reasons we're so divided right now is liberals helped it along, liberals like me, by not understanding the worldview of their opponents and speaking a language that actually alienated and sometimes insulted and offended conservatives, which helped to deepen the division without even realizing they were doing it. And I go into that, in a lot more detail in the book. Meanwhile, I think Trumpism is not really republicanism. It's nationalist populism, if we were really going to define it. It's pretty distinct from traditional conservatism. And we now are in a situation where we have warring tribes as opposed to political opponents. And I call on everybody, whether they're left, right, or middle, stop demonizing your opponents. Stop calling them evil. We didn't used to do that, and it attacks the foundations of democracy. There's almost nobody who's actually evil in the world. There are people doing very bad things, but almost everybody thinks they're doing the right thing. So that's critically important. As far as the
You're right.
polls go, the conventional wisdom is that the polls were wildly wrong in 2016, and the conventional wisdom is actually wrong. The national polls were actually very accurate. They predicted that Hillary would win the popular vote, I think by about 2.5 million to 3 million votes, which is pretty much what happened, smack dab in the middle of the margin of error. Some of the state polls had problems, but also even Trump was surprised when he won. Because it really was, what's called a black swan event in finance, where just because things are unlikely doesn't mean they can't happen. And sometimes you get these black swan events where multiple unlikely things come together at once, and you end up having, the perfect storm or a terrible airline disaster, not because one thing happened, but because multiple things happened. And in the case of Trump, he was right for the times, as I argue in the book. The subtitle is Why Trump Was Inevitable and What Happens Next. So somebody like Trump was going to get elected sooner or later is my argument. But the fact that it happened in 2016 nobody really could have predicted. It was always possible, of course, and it turned out on that day it happened. But it's not really that the polls were wildly wrong. It's just the polls can't predict what happened, especially when you look at, he won by something like 77,000 votes, distributed just right across 3 crucial battleground states. If that hadn't happened, we would have had a very different result, and it would have looked like a clear Hillary Clinton victory, and the conventional wisdom would be very different. It would have been, oh, well, Hillary's win, of course, was inevitable all along, and that would be the conventional wisdom.
Right. And I'll be perfectly blunt, and I'm not asking you to agree with this or disagree. I was not a massive fan of Hillary. I wasn't a massive fan. There were positives, there were negatives, and I voted for Hillary, but I had my doubts about her, and just
Sure.
like I have my doubts about Joe Biden. So that all I'm saying is, when I say that I think Trump is off his rocker, that doesn't mean that I am a biased person
Right.
coming on to do this show. I wanted to ask you, though, from ABC's standpoint, why they didn't ask Joe Biden about the New York Post story with Hunter Biden, and just the idea that, again, I'm not trying to play favorites, but for the amount of grilling that Savannah Guthrie gave Donald Trump, you have to ask him about that, don't you?
This is one of the central challenges of journalism in the modern age, because the system has been hacked. Our democratic system of free speech has been hacked by bad actors. And what I mean by that is, free speech is, one of the most important features of our democracy, and the fact that our government has to bend over backwards to avoid squelching anybody's free speech is actually, unusual in the history of the world, and it's even unusual in the contemporary world when you look across the globe. The trouble is, bad actors like Russia, for example, or unscrupulous political operatives hack that system, and the damage is amplified geometrically, like by powers. It's not just multiplied. We're talking about cubing it, the damage or more, through social media. So the old saying is that a lie travels halfway around the world before the truth gets its boots on. And there's research that backs that up. On Twitter, for example, false information that's inflammatory spreads 6 times faster than the truth will. And so that New York Post story reeks to high heaven of a Russian disinformation campaign. And Giuliani, who's one of the primary sources, is clearly a tool of Russian intelligence. I'm not just saying that. That's what our own intelligence services are saying. And they warned the president of that a year ago, according to recent reporting. So what do you do if the New York Post runs a story that really smells, and multiple fact checkers have looked at it now, and it's a really, really flimsy story that quite likely is just basically made up beyond some core truths, like, yes, Hunter Biden was on the board of that company, but that looks like that's about all that can be checked out. And so what do you do? I mean, if you agree to dignify something that looks like it's a Russian attack on our system, it's Russian disinformation coming from Russian intelligence directed by Vladimir Putin, and this is what's been happening since before 2016. Again, not me saying that, according to all of our intelligence services, including the FBI as a counterintelligence service. What do you do? Do you help them spread that? Do you dignify it? I mean, because really, if somebody said, somebody decided on the other side to generate a story that said that President Trump was a serial killer, do you dignify that by saying, well, it's in the media now? And another problem there is Trump does that kind of stuff. He retweets QAnon and white supremacists, and then when he gets pinned down, like last night, he won't disavow QAnon. He says QAnon has this insane, it's like the most insane conspiracy theory that supposedly our government is riddled with satanic pedophiles who are also cannibals. And instead of people going, yeah, well, that's insane, we have a president who pretends he doesn't know what QAnon is, but says, I understand they're against pedophilia. I think that's very good. So this is the information environment we're in. And the system, as I say, has been hacked. And Trump, one of his talents is he understands very well how to hack broadcast TV and social media, because emotion rules. If you give people something really intensely emotional, whether it's true or not doesn't matter. It's just titillating. We can't look away. It's like a car crash. Everybody has to have a look. So this is a challenge, and it remains unresolved. How do you be responsible as a media company, whether you're a broadcast network or you're Twitter or Facebook, without setting yourself up to police free speech? And by the way, private companies have every right to do that. It's only the government that's not allowed. The company is not forced to broadcast anything you say or distribute it. However, it means there's a tremendous challenge for everybody to decide, how do we let as much information through as possible, but don't leave ourselves vulnerable to these hacking operations by foreign intelligence services or completely dishonest politicians?
So as someone with your expertise, I have to ask a personal question. One of the journalists from the New York Post that is attached to that story is my former student.
Well done. Maybe did he miss the ethics day when you were teaching that class?
And when the story first broke, I immediately looked at it, and the first thing I saw was the byline, and I saw the hype that this was before Twitter banned it, and like early, and all I said was, "Look at her, she's reporting on real stuff," and I haven't heard back. Again, the book is Patriots.
I don't know. I mean, the whole business model, unfortunately, supports it.
Yeah, there's no question. I'm trying to put the image of your book onto the screen, so I'm multitasking as we're talking.
I appreciate it.
One of the things that I do want to ask you about is this political strategies and people criticizing for doing what seems to be exactly what political strategists would tell them to do. For example, Joe Biden has been asked a number of times about court packing. And there's all these videos of Lindsey Graham and Mitch McConnell and all these guys talking in 2016 about how President Obama should not name a Supreme Court justice in an election year, and that was like months before the election. And because you should let whoever gets elected, pick the fate of the court. And all these guys, and social media, there's all these videos are coming out. And they're showing all these Republicans saying this. I know it infuriates a lot of people on both sides of the aisle, but is there something to be said for the idea that what's happening is maybe dirty pool and hypocritical? But why didn't what is the basis for saying that it's immoral to shove a justice into the system 3 weeks before an election?
Yeah, it's I would say it's not immoral. It's kind of borderline immoral. I think it's unethical, and it's damaging
hypocritical, isn't it?
Trust in our democracy, which pardon me?
It's hypocritical, isn't it? I mean, these guys are all on tape saying
it's deeply hypocritical. It's deeply hypocritical. Part of this gets to another problem that is undermining democracy itself, which is my greatest concern here. I don't think that conservative versus liberal policies is the issue in this election. To me, it's the defense of democracy, which is why I have so many conservative friends who agree with me in opposing Trump, and we disagree about all sorts of policy issues. To me, the number one thing that's on the ballot is, do we want to have a functioning democracy or not, whichever party we belong to? And the cynicism, the assumption that all politicians are liars and crooks, is another way that democracy is being destroyed from the bottom up, because that is actually not true, but the story keeps getting peddled and has been peddled for so long that I think many, if not most, Americans assume it is true. And the thing is that, of course, politicians are going to shift their positions. And when you think about it, they have to, because they're representing their voters. So if the voters want something different now than what they wanted before, we would, to some extent, hope politicians would shift their positions, because the point of this is not that we elected them to do exactly what they want. We elect them to do what we want them to do. So that's point one, is it's naive to think that a politician would never shift their position. Again, they would not be being representative if they never did that. However, there's a difference between that and outright lying and outright exploiting the system in every possible way you can for naked power grabs, which is what we see happening now with the Supreme Court nomination and the level of hypocrisy we've seen from Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham and those folks. Now, again, a lot of lay people assume, well, they're all liars, they all do it. I hear that all the time, and it is not true. I can tell you, I have worked with many of these people, and I will not work with a liar. I will not work with a dishonest politician. We're very selective. My firm, Boots Road Group, we only take good people as clients, and if they're dishonest or have bad values, we send them away. We'll do that. We don't want the money. We won't work with a client we don't believe in. And every single time I have spoken on behalf of one of my clients or advised them on what to say or written a speech for them or whatever it is, it always starts with what's the truth. And it's 100% requirement that what we are about to say is true. Because if you actually want to be effective, you have to be trustworthy. Once you tell a lie, why would anybody trust anything you say? So if you go back to previous presidencies, for example, whether it's Barack Obama or George W. Bush or George H.W. Bush or Bill Clinton, of course you will find people spinning and trying to put the most positive face on things when they're serving as spokespeople. They're supposed to be advocates for their administration. But those people would not lie. If they felt there were things they couldn't say or they wanted to spin, some of them, of course, were more aggressive at spinning than other ones were, but they would not lie. And if someone was caught lying, like, for example, during the Reagan administration when they were caught lying, or when Bill Clinton was caught lying, that was a really, really big problem for a very good reason. And because it eats away at democracy. You have to basically trust that, yeah, of course they're going to have an opinion. And of course, they'll probably be biased, but you expect them not to lie. And what we're seeing now is that the average American assumes they're all lying all the time. So you just choose the one that's on your side. And that means that's not a democracy. That's basically warlordism. It's a thugocracy.
It's amazing. It's pretty amazing. Do you have time? Can I ask you just one more?
Let me just check my, I've got about 4 or 5 minutes.
Okay, I promise. And I appreciate this great deal.
I appreciate your time.
Joe Biden, taking all the policy stuff and throwing it out the window, he seems less confident in his speech than he did 10 years ago, 15 years ago. He seems like he's getting older, and he seems like he's slowing down. And I'm voting for him. You understand? It's not about that. I'm not looking for a spin here. How can he assure the American people that he is up for the job? And I'm not the only person that's seeing this. Could an undecided see this and literally vote the other way, literally because they just don't think he's, I don't want to say well, because he doesn't look sick. He just looks older. And he looks like he's slowing down, and he stutters a lot. It looks like they're feeding him like numbers upon numbers upon numbers, and he's trying to process it all. My heart goes out to him because I do think he's a man of integrity, but I just wonder if I think the job of being president will be easier than these next 3 weeks.
Yeah. Do you think the job of president will be harder than these next 3 weeks?
No, I think the job of president he can do, because he'll be surrounded by good people, and he'll have the ability to do all these things. I think that these town halls, he looks not nervous but shaky and
I disagree. I know what you're talking about, but I disagree, and I would encourage people to actually watch last night, because he is not being fed to him. He knows that stuff. I agree. You can tell he's older than he used to be. And let me declare my bias here. I love Joe Biden, just like everybody who's ever worked with him or been around him.
Right.
He's a wonderful person. And he's also very, very smart. This is another one with a conventional wisdom that he's sort of goofy Uncle Joe, because he's fun, and he
Right.
does commit gaffes and stuff, and he wears his heart on his sleeve and all of that. However, there's a reason Obama made him virtually a partner in the presidency and gave him international relations, in particular Iraq, and put him in charge of the recovery effort during the Great Crash, which was one of the most successful, efficient, and fraud-free, waste-free major government programs in history. It was incredibly successful, and people forget, it paid for itself and more, and gave us the economic recovery and growth that we've had ever since, and that Trump has slowed down while jacking up the debt. So yeah, I think we would be denying the truth to say that it doesn't seem like Joe Biden is older than he used to be, but I think he is every bit there. And when he quotes those statistics and policies, sometimes going on, with more than the person thought they were going to get, he just knows all that stuff. That's one of the big arguments for him. Is he's really an expert in all of this stuff. Also, consider the alternative. If you have concerns about whether Joe might have lost a verbal step when he's speaking, and you're going to choose the guy who recommended you try injecting bleach to beat the coronavirus, or go for sticking somehow bright lights inside your body, or who believes everything Vladimir Putin says and dismisses everything his own intelligence services say, and who will not disavow QAnon because I understand they're very strongly against pedophilia. I think you're looking for an excuse to vote for Trump, is what that's really all about.
That's fair. It's let's put a pin in it right there. That's a great line. You're right, and it's not an apples to apples, and it was more of I try to hold the person that you're voting for to a very high standard, and I think you had a very proper answer. The book, once again, and I'm trying to put the book on there, and it's a little shaky and it's a little cut off. But it's called Patriots of Two Nations, Why Trump Was Inevitable and What Happens Next. Spencer Critchley, how can people find you online?
Well, my home website is spencercritchley.com, SPENCERCRITCHLEY.com. Wish my parents had come up with a better name for a URL, but what did they know at the time?
If you want to talk about an on-air name, we can. No, I'm just kidding.
Or the book is patriotsoftwonations.com. Or you can go to Amazon and just enter Patriots of Two Nations. It'll come up. I'm very happy to say that as of today, it's available as an audio book as well on Audible.
Great.
And again, I hope that people will check it out, either because they're liberals trying to understand why good people would vote for Trump, or they're Trump voters who are not going to find me saying I think Trump is okay, but who I think may very well learn more about why we're so divided, and how actually the division we're experiencing now goes all the way back to the founding of the country.
Well, and I'll tell you what, if folks go to my Twitter page, at Seth_Everett, I'm going to post a link to the book as soon as we get done here, and make sure that people get a chance to see it. Spencer, it's a pleasure meeting you. I love doing this. I'd love to do this again between now and Election Day.
Sure.
Just, maybe when things get really crazy.
Oh, yeah, like who would ever think that'll happen?
No, that can't happen. It's just going to be a mundane.
I'm sure it's just going to be calm from it. It'll be calm from here on out, I'm sure.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. Spencer Critchley right there. And that was really cool. And I didn't know him going in. He was fantastic. And what a great interview, and what a great opportunity. Spencer was fantastic, and I hope he had a good time, because I'd love to have him back. That was a really enlightening conversation. Like I said, I hope folks understand that I come into this with no bias, with no prejudice. I want safety. I want COVID gone, and I want people to get along. That's all I want. I don't want black people getting shot. I don't want riots and fires and awful things like that. I just want peace, and I want sports to be normal, and I just want things like that. And if that makes me a left-wing something or a right-wing something, so be it. You can judge me all you want, but I try to be open and honest as well. This weekend, enjoy all the football and all the baseball. Enjoy that, and we'll do more of these. I had fun. This was a lot of fun, and I don't know how to end this. Oh, there it is. So I was wondering, we might be going on forever. But check me out on Twitter and download the podcast and say hello whenever you get a chance, because I'm friendly. I don't bite. I did get hacked on Twitter a couple of weeks ago, so if you see something strange about me, don't even give it a moment's thought. But we're verified on everything, and thanks to the folks at HAP. Thanks to Pablo and Peter for helping me get started with this, and I'm glad we're doing it. And this is more